Hey, you ready for a life story that's like straight out of a movie?
Oh, yeah.
We're talking John McAfee.
Ah, McAfee.
Antivirus, pioneer, tech rebel, and honestly, a man who just seemed to attract controversy everywhere he went.
I mean, you're not wrong. What's fascinating about McAfee is he was way more than just some tech guy.
Sure.
He was this, like, larger-than-life character who just always seemed to be pushing boundaries and, testing limits and defying expectations.
Exactly. And we've got like a whole bunch of sources here.
Yeah.
Wikipedia news articles. We've got a Medium post in there.
Okay.
And they all paint this incredible picture of a guy who goes from like coding in his garage
Right.
to a global icon. And then, well, things got a little messy.
They did.
But before we get too far ahead, let's start at the beginning. I mean, most people probably know McAfee for that antivirus software, right?
Yeah.
That was like his big debut.
Right back in the late 80s when computers were just becoming like a thing for everyone.
Right.
A new threat came along with that, computer viruses. That brain virus, one of the first ones to spread like wildfire, really scared a lot of people.
It made them realize, oh, wait, my computer can get sick.
Exactly right. It made them realize their computers were vulnerable.
And that's where McAfee steps in.
Right.
Talk about perfect timing.
He was in the right place at the right time. And it's remarkable, not just that he created VirusStan, like the first commercial antivirus software, but the way he distributed it.
Yeah.
He understood what the internet could do, which was brand new at the time, to get his software straight to the users.
That's what I think is so cool. He wasn't just some tech genius. He was like a marketing genius, too.
Oh, yeah.
Distributing software online. Like, that was unheard of back then.
Revolutionary.
It totally skipped over that old way of selling software in stores.
Totally. And, it really foreshadowed the way we do things now with app stores and downloads.
Yeah.
It's just what we do now. McAfee was way ahead of the curve.
Totally.
And this move made him incredibly successful, turning McAfee into a household name.
So he basically invented the antivirus industry.
Pretty much single-handedly.
Okay, so we got McAfee, the tech visionary, the marketing whiz, riding this wave of success. But as we know, things took a turn.
Right.
Rarely stays perfect forever, especially with someone as unpredictable as McAfee.
Right.
So what were some of the first cracks to show?
Well, that 2008 financial crisis hit him pretty hard.
Oh, yeah.
He lost a huge amount of money.
Wow.
A major setback for someone used to being so wealthy.
We're going from tech millionaire to facing financial troubles.
Yeah.
Oof, that's got to be rough. But what really surprised me was that he then started criticizing his own company's software.
What?
It was a spectacle.
Yeah.
He was publicly telling people to uninstall McAfee antivirus.
Oh, no.
Calling it bloatware, software with so many features, it just gets slow and clunky.
Can you imagine creating something that becomes like a global phenomenon and then telling everyone to get rid of it?
It's wild.
It makes you wonder, was he genuinely concerned about what the software had become, or was it something else? Was this just McAfee being McAfee, attention-seeking provocative? Hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
But it does show how willing he was to go against the grain, even if it meant attacking his own legacy.
Right.
And it's interesting because there's a parallel here with the tech industry as a whole. Concerns about bloatware data privacy software getting more and more complex. These are still issues today.
So in a way, McAfee was pointing these things out, even back then. He was always a bit of a rebel, wasn't he?
He was.
But his rebellious side really went into overdrive when he left the U.S. and moved to Belize.
Yeah, Belize was a big change.
Yeah.
It seemed like he was searching for something, maybe a simpler life, a fresh start away from all the pressure and attention in the U.S.
Makes sense.
He bought this huge estate there and really embraced like a hedonistic lifestyle.
It's like a movie plot. Tech mogul finds refuge in a tropical paradise.
Totally.
But of course, with McAfee, things never go according to plan. What happened in Belize? Things took a dark turn, didn't they?
They did in 2012. McAfee's neighbor, Gregory Fall, was found murdered. And McAfee, for reasons that aren't entirely clear, quickly became a person of interest in the investigation.
Okay, hold on. So we went from antivirus software to financial troubles to murder.
Yeah.
This is where things go from intriguing to, totally unbelievable.
It is a turning point in his story.
Yeah.
McAfee always said he was innocent and that the Belizean authorities were framing him, but the fact remained he was a person of interest in a murder case.
And that's when he took off, right?
Yeah.
Went on the run, basically became a fugitive.
Exactly. He vanished into the Belizean jungle, disguised himself, crossed borders illegally, even got arrested in Guatemala.
Wow.
It was a crazy time, full of intrigue and speculation.
So was this genuine fear like McAfee actually thought his life was in danger? Or was it a calculated escape to avoid legal trouble? Or maybe a little bit of both?
It's tough to say. McAfee was always great at self-promotion, so maybe he was playing up the danger angle.
Right.
But you can't deny that his time in Belize added a whole new layer of mystery to his story.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like he was living multiple lives, each one more incredible than the last. And just when you think you've seen it all, McAfee pulls another surprise. He decides to run for president of the United States.
Not once, but twice.
Wait, what? From tech mogul to fugitive to presidential hopeful, this is getting ridiculous.
That's John McAfee for you. Always pushing the limits, always looking for the spotlight. He ran for the Libertarian Party nomination in 2016 and 2020.
Okay, before we get into those campaigns, let's take a step back. What exactly is the Libertarian Party?
Oh, sure.
For those of us who aren't political science experts, could you give us a quick rundown?
Yeah, the Libertarian Party is a political party in the U.S. that really focuses on individual liberty, limited government, free markets, and peace.
Okay.
They believe in minimizing the government's role in people's lives and maximizing personal freedom. They tend to be for things like lower taxes, less regulation, and a non-interventionist foreign policy.
Okay, that makes sense. So McAfee, with his anti-establishment views and his distrust of authority, kind of fit in with the libertarian philosophy in some ways.
Right.
But his campaigns were anything but typical right. What were his platforms like?
They were a mix of libertarian ideals and McAfee's own unique take on techno-libertarianism.
Okay.
He was really big on cybersecurity, privacy, and government overreach. He saw himself as the cybersecurity candidate, the one who could protect the country from all these cyber attacks.
So it's like he was trying to use his tech expertise in the political world.
Right.
Did his unconventional past, all the drama and controversy, hurt or help his campaign?
It was kind of both.
Yeah.
On one hand, his notoriety definitely got him attention.
Yeah.
People were curious about this wildcard candidate who had lived such a crazy life.
Right.
But on the other hand, his past raised questions about, his stability, his judgment, and if he could actually hold a public office.
Yeah, it's hard to see someone with McAfee's background appealing to like a whole bunch of voters.
Yeah.
But hey, stranger things have happened in politics.
Really?
What kind of reception did he get? Was he taken seriously as a candidate, or was it just a media circus?
It was a bit of both. Some people were definitely drawn to his message about personal freedom and limited government, especially within the Libertarian Party.
Right.
But for the most part, the media treated his campaigns like a spectacle, focusing more on his personality and his past than what he actually wanted to do politically.
So a lot of flash, not a lot of substance? Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He made headlines, he got people talking, but he never really had a chance at winning.
Yeah.
It was almost like he was running for president as some kind of performance art, a way to keep pushing boundaries and challenging the way things are done.
It's like he was using the political stage as another way to express his unique view of the world.
Right.
But speaking of platforms, we can't forget about his obsession with cryptocurrency.
Oh, yeah.
That was a big part of his later years, wasn't it?
McAfee was a big advocate for cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin.
Yeah.
He saw it as a revolutionary technology that could disrupt the whole traditional financial system and empower people.
And didn't he make some pretty out there predictions about Bitcoin's future value? Something about eating. Well, let's just say it was a bold statement.
He did. He predicted that Bitcoin would hit $500,000 by 2020, or he'd do something pretty drastic on national television. Of course, that didn't happen.
Oh.
And he later admitted it was a publicity stunt to get people talking about cryptocurrency.
Classic McAfee. Always the showman.
Yeah.
But it does show how much he believed in cryptocurrency.
He did.
He was willing to risk everything for it.
He was all in. He even started his own cryptocurrency called McAfee Coin.
Wow, he really did go all in.
Yeah.
But as we know, McAfee's story takes another dark turn. In 2020, he was arrested in Spain on charges of tax evasion.
Yeah.
This was a pretty big fall from grace for someone who had once been at the top of the tech world.
It was. He was facing extradition to the United States for those charges, and things weren't looking good for him.
And that brings us to the final chapter of McAfee's life, which we'll get into after a quick break. We'll explore his death in a Spanish prison and the questions that still linger around it. Stay with us.
So McAfee's in a Spanish prison facing extradition. Things are looking pretty bad for him.
Yeah.
It's a far cry from that lavish life he was living in Belize.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of Belize, I think we should go back to that part of his life for a second.
Okay.
It's like the turning point where things start to really unravel for him.
Yeah, it's like this tropical paradise turned into a nightmare.
Right.
What even drew him to Belize in the first place?
Well, on the surface, it seemed like he was looking for a new start.
Yeah.
He talked about escaping the pressure of the U.S., living a simpler life, maybe reconnecting with nature.
Right.
He bought this huge estate on the coast and kind of seemed like he was living as a recluse, surrounded by lush jungle and those beautiful turquoise waters.
It sounds so idyllic, like a tech mogul's version of going off the grid.
Totally.
But with McAfee, there's always more to the story, right?
Right. Oh, there always is. Beneath the surface, there were these hints of trouble.
Like what?
He had run-ins with the local authorities, apparently, over some unlicensed firearms. There were even rumors about him setting up a makeshift lab to research herbal antibiotics.
Herbal antibiotics. That's a new one.
Right.
It's like this weird mix from cutting-edge antivirus software to herbal remedies.
It really is. It's like he was trying to reinvent himself as some kind of jungle scientist.
Another one of those unexpected turns in his life.
Totally. He was always restless, always looking for the next big challenge, the next big thing.
But his relationship with the Belizean government just kept getting worse. And then, of course, there's the murder of his neighbor, Gregory Fall. That's the big turning point, right? This tropical getaway becomes the scene of a murder mystery.
Exactly.
Was there ever any real evidence linking McAfee to the crime?
Well, he was never officially charged with murder.
Okay.
But he was considered a person of interest in the investigation.
Oh, wow.
McAfee completely denied being involved, of course, claiming he was being framed by corrupt officials.
And that's when he decided to run, right? Goes from tech entrepreneur to fugitive on the run from the law.
Exactly. He went into hiding, used all his tech skills and survival knowledge to avoid getting caught.
Oh, wow.
He disguised himself, crossed borders illegally, even chartered a boat to get to another country.
It's like something straight out of a movie.
It was a crazy game of cat and mouse, and it made news all over the world.
But eventually they caught him.
Yeah.
He got deported back to the U.S. Did he ever face any consequences for the Fall murder?
Not in a criminal court, no. But Fall's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against McAfee in the U.S.
Okay.
And he was found liable while he wasn't there. So even though he was never officially charged with murder, he was still held responsible for Fall's death.
Wow, that's a lot to carry.
It is.
It's like this shadow hanging over him.
Yeah.
But even with all that going on, McAfee still wanted the attention. He decides to run for president not once, but twice.
He does.
What was he thinking? Was it a real desire to serve the country or something else entirely?
It's tough to say what was going on in his mind. Some people thought it was a publicity stunt, a way to stay relevant and keep his name in the news.
Right.
Others believed he was truly concerned about the direction the country was going in and wanted to make a real difference.
Okay, so was there any substance to his campaigns, or was it all just for show? What were his main issues?
His platforms were a mix of libertarian ideas and his own unique views. He focused a lot on cybersecurity, privacy, and government overreach, which makes sense given his background.
Right.
He saw himself as the candidate who could protect the country from cyber attacks and defend individual liberties in this digital age we live in.
It's like he was trying to be this digital revolutionary fighting against the growing power of the government and big tech.
Right.
Did his past, all that craziness, help or hurt his chances?
It was a double-edged sword, like
Yeah.
it often was with McAfee.
Right.
His fame got people interested in his campaigns, but it also made people question his credibility and if he could really handle being president. And let's be honest, his campaigns were pretty chaotic. There were constantly changing strategies, contradictory statements, even endorsements of other candidates sometimes.
Wow.
It was a wild ride. His campaigns were a reflection of him, unpredictable, unconventional, and always pushing boundaries.
But ultimately, neither of his campaigns really went anywhere.
No, they didn't. He was dealing with all these legal problems, and his image had been tarnished over the years.
It seems like he was always battling his own demons,
He what?
both the ones inside him and the ones out in the world. But even with his personal life falling apart, he kept supporting cryptocurrency.
He did.
Why was he so drawn to it?
He saw it as a way to challenge the traditional financial system,
Okay.
to empower individuals and create a more decentralized world where things were more fair. It fit with his libertarian beliefs and his distrust of authority.
And what about those predictions he made about Bitcoin's value? Were those just for show, or did he really believe it would get that high?
It's hard to know for sure. He was always good at self-promotion, so there was definitely some showmanship involved. But he also seemed to genuinely believe in how much cryptocurrency could change things.
So even as his life was falling apart, he still had faith in crypto.
He did. It's another example of how McAfee was hard to put in a box.
Right.
He was complex and contradictory, always pushing the limits and defying expectations.
And that brings us to the final part of his life, his arrest in Spain and his death in prison.
It does.
It's a tragic and controversial end to a life that was already filled with drama and intrigue.
It is. And we'll dive into that final chapter right after this.
Okay, we're back, and it's time to talk about the last chapter of John McAfee's life. His arrest in Spain on those tax evasion charges was a huge fall from where he had been.
It really was a far cry from the life he'd been living, all the wealth and freedom, the fame.
Right.
Suddenly he's stuck in a prison cell facing extradition to the U.S.
And this wasn't like some small financial mistake, right?
Yeah.
This was serious stuff with serious consequences.
Absolutely. The U.S. government was saying he dodged paying millions of dollars in taxes.
Wow.
They were basically calling him a tax cheat, someone who used his money and his influence to get around the law.
Which doesn't really fit with the image he'd built for himself as this tech pioneer and libertarian champion.
Right.
How did McAfee react to these charges?
He completely denied doing anything wrong.
Of course.
He said he was being targeted because of his political opinions, his criticism of the government, and his support for cryptocurrency.
So he was basically painting himself as a political prisoner.
Exactly, a victim of a system that wanted to shut him up.
And I bet that idea resonated with some of his followers.
Oh, absolutely. There were people who believed he was being persecuted for what he believed in.
Right.
That the government was using these tax charges to silence someone who was speaking out against them.
It's important to remember, though, that these were just accusations.
Right.
McAfee was never actually found guilty of any tax crimes.
That's true, but this whole legal battle was really wearing on him. He was in a prison in a foreign country, away from everyone he cared about, and facing a future that was completely uncertain.
And then right in the middle of all this, he gets that YCKD tattoo.
Yeah.
It's almost like he was predicting what was going to happen to him.
It does kind of feel that way, doesn't it? That tattoo definitely added to all the conspiracy theories that seemed to suggest that he was afraid for his life, that he thought someone was out to get him.
And then in June 2021, the news breaks. McAfee is found dead in his cell.
Great.
The official ruling suicide.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, with McAfee, nothing is ever that simple.
Nope. The circumstances surrounding his death were definitely suspicious, to say the least.
Yeah.
There were questions about the timing, why there wasn't a suicide note, and inconsistencies in the official reports.
And his wife, Janice McAfee, has been very open about her belief that he was murdered.
She has.
She's pointed to all the times he said he was being targeted by powerful people and even his own predictions that he'd meet a violent end.
She's been pushing really hard for more investigation, questioning the official story, and demanding answers to all the unanswered questions.
It seems like even in death, McAfee is still surrounded by controversy and mystery.
He is.
The mystery of how he died just adds to the legend of this already enigmatic figure.
It's a fitting end in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
His life was this roller coaster full of crazy twists and turns, unpredictable moments, and questions that never got answered.
So where does that leave us? What can we even make of John McAfee's legacy? He was this tech genius who changed cybersecurity forever, but he was also a deeply flawed person who made some pretty bad choices.
It's a complicated legacy for sure. He was a brilliant innovator, but also a master manipulator, a rebel who fought for freedom, but also seemed to thrive on chaos.
He was a walking contradiction, a bundle of paradoxes, someone who could be inspiring and repulsive all at the same time.
And I think that's what's most interesting about his story. It forces us to look at how complex human nature really is. The lines between genius and madness, brilliance and self-destruction are so blurry.
McAfee's life is a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
It reminds us that success doesn't last forever,
Right.
that fame can be a dangerous thing,
Yeah.
and that even the brightest minds can have their own inner demons.
But it's also a story about resilience, about determination, about a man who refused to be put in a box, who challenged the status quo, and who lived life on his own terms, whatever the cost.
So what's the takeaway for all of us trying to make sense of this? What can we learn from the life and death of John McAfee?
I think the biggest lesson is to embrace the fact that there aren't always easy answers.
Yeah.
McAfee's story can't be put into a neat little box. He wasn't just a hero or a villain, he was both.
He was a product of his time, a reflection of all the changes in technology and culture that shaped the world we live in today.
And maybe the best we can do is keep asking questions, keep digging into the different parts of his story, and accept that we may never have all the answers.
That's a good point. It seems like with John McAfee, the mystery never really ends.
Right.
Even in death, he leaves us with more questions than answers.
And maybe that's the whole point. His life was this constant challenge to our assumptions, a reminder that the world is rarely black and white.
Well, there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into the extraordinary life and controversial death of John McAfee, a man who left a huge mark on the world's technology and whose story still fascinates and confuses us.
We hope you keep exploring this story. Keep digging into the sources we talked about and come to your own conclusions about this complicated and mysterious figure.
Remember, the deep dive is all about giving you the info you need to make up your own mind. We don't give you easy answers, but we hope to spark your curiosity and get you thinking critically.
And as always, we want to know what you think. What surprised you the most about John McAfee's story? What questions do you still have?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of John McAfee. We'll be back next time with another fascinating story, another journey into what it means to be human.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving.